Welcome back to Tech Tuesday for the Cleveland, Ohio stake. We are going to do kind of part 2 of our LDS tools from last week. If you remember, last week we covered LDS tools via the web browser, logging into LDS.org on your web browser and finding out the tools that are accessible there. And this week we're going to cover how to access it from your mobile device. So if you have an Android, if you have an iPad, an iPhone, you're able to download the LDS Tools app, as you can see my cursor pointing to. We can download that app from the appropriate app store and utilize that to access your account. So that's what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that on my iPad. And if you've never logged in, it will request that you log in and put in the same password you did on LDS.org. But if you have logged in before, as I have, you'll see here it automatically drops me to, at the top center, to the directory, either the last place I was in there or it might be my own ward. But this was the last place I was in, was the Cleveland, Ohio stake. And across the bottom, that's going to show me the different options I have, the menu options to hop between. I do want to point out up here at the top, if I select that, you'll see that I could choose my entire stake or any particular ward in the stake. So for example, if I'm in the Strongsville ward, I could choose that. If I wanted to find someone in another ward, I could choose their ward, or I could look at the stake as a whole. So in this case, I'm going to look at the stake as a whole. It's alphabetically listing the members, but I could certainly search here in the top center for someone that I'm looking for. The next item you have is you can look for people by organization. So in the bottom kind of left screen, I can see the organization tab, and I could choose if I needed to see who was in charge of the stake young men's presidency. I could click in there. If I wanted to see our stake presidency, I could see all the members of our stake presidency and their roles. I could click into each one of them, and then it gives me more information like their phone number or their email. So you certainly can do that. But there's a cool tool in here that most people miss. In the top right, I actually could click the icon that you'd see from a normal map icon that kind of maps out where they all are on the map in my area. But the really cool tool is this open in or action feature that you see on a mobile device. And if I select that, it actually lets me, just from that screen, send an email to this entire list of people. So if I needed to send a message to the entire stake presidency, or for example, my entire young women's presidency, I could come into the app and do that. And as long as I have a email app loaded on my mobile device, it will let me send an email to that list, and it will automatically populate it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and select that just so you can kind of see how that does. It actually launches an email. I have not put in my settings, so it's asking me to change that, but it's going to automatically put everybody's email address in. Then I could draft the email and I could send that off. I'm going to cancel that for now. You'll also see that it also has the option of sending a text message to the list or sharing this list with someone else. You have those options as well. Just remember, these things are contingent upon the people that you're sending a message to having their actual email address in the directory or a cell phone in there to send them a text message. But that's something that can make life a little quicker and easier as part of that app. The next item over in the bottom is the calendar. So I could select the calendar, and this lets me see the calendar for my ward, the stake, those different calendars that last week we kind of chose were able to be accessed. So I can see right here, like this is an event, the face-to-face for the youth for President Ireling and Holland that is coming up, the Stake Youth Temple trip. I can see those things. Now, I don't specifically know what those colors are, but underneath each one of them, it will actually list what ward or wards or stake that revolves around. And I could always come up to edit in the top right. And when that comes up, you'll see that lists the calendars that I'm subscribed to. So it'll list the stake, it might list a ward, and if I don't, let's say, need to see the High Priest calendar for the Strongsville ward, I could deselect it and make that go away and then say done, and I would no longer see events for them unless I came back in and selected it. So those are things that you can choose to customize and see the calendar. So at any time on the go, if you needed to see the calendar, we can come in here. One thing I'll point out is over to the right, there is a sync button. Automatically, the app usually every third or fourth time does request for you to sync. So it doesn't automatically update events until you sync it again. So if something has changed, or let's say this activity for the priest has canceled, if you have not done a sync to your calendar, you may not see that if that change has happened since you've done it. So you don't have to sync every time, but certainly if you're going to be looking at the calendar, sometimes it's helpful to go ahead and just go over to the sync button. I can see I had done that on February 27th, but I can choose to go ahead and sync that again. And you'll see that it kind of downloads. It says it might take a couple minutes depending upon your connection, but it's usually pretty quick. So any changes that have been made to the calendar, somebody's updated their contact information, those type of things will now be synced with your device, and you'll have the most current information. Again, the app usually tells you to do it every third or fourth time, but it's good to actually just maybe kind of do that if you're looking for specific information. And then once I sync, it just takes me kind of back to the home login, which is a directory for my ward. I'm going to skip over lists for a minute. We're going to come to that right at the end. I do want to point out there is a missionary section, so I could choose to see the missionaries. This is just for my particular ward, but if I wanted to see the missionaries serving for the whole stake, I could switch that over, and I can see what missionaries are serving in our stake at the top. And as I scroll down, I can actually see the missionaries that happen to be serving from our stake out in the field. And I could click and see where they're serving at. So if I wanted to click on Elder DeBalso, we can see that he's serving in Fiji. So that's pretty cool. And if I wanted to email him and give him my best wishes or things like that, then we could do that if you wanted to correspond with the missionaries. So that information's there. And again, I could come back to my specific ward to see what are the missionaries that are serving in my ward at this time. And how to get in touch with them and those kinds of things. So that would list your current ward missionary's phone number if you needed to reach them to schedule an appointment or give them a referral. I think they would be happy to hear from you. The next item over in here is meeting houses. So as I select meeting houses, that will show you the entire United States. That will show you the entire world, actually. But I can click and see the different meeting houses as I take this smaller in our Cleveland area. Certainly some of these aren't in our stake, but as I scroll over, we can see the ones that are. We can see the meeting houses, and I could click on any particular one. It'll zoom in, and it'll tell me information about it. I can see which wards meet there and what time they meet, their address, their phone number. So it can give you a lot of information. And this is very helpful, especially when you're traveling. You can actually always pull up this app and look for a meeting house in your area. There is that open to symbol in the upper right that lets me maybe message it to myself or send it in an email to somebody or things like that, add it to my notes so I can capture that information. And a quick tip, you can always take a screenshot of this. So like on my iPad, I can click my home button and then my power button up here at the top or on the side, depending upon my version, and I could take just a screenshot. You see it flash, so that now will end up in my pictures, so I have that information. Another tip that's true of a mobile device, you're always going to be able to see, like, how do I get back to the screen? Certainly I can click on any of these menu items down here, but anytime you see a back arrow, that will take you back a screen so that you can go to where you need to be. If you're not aware, if you have location services turned on for this app, right up here in the top right, there's a location services icon, so that's how it knows what's the building that's closest to where I'm at right now. So if you're traveling and you happen to be in a particular city and you have location services turned on for this app, which you can do in your settings, I can have it locate the nearest ward buildings to me on that particular Sunday wherever I'm at. Very cool feature. Okay, we talked about the sync. In the far right, there's a more. That just gives me the settings. There is a whole help section, so if you want to learn more and you need to know how to create an LDS account, you forgot your password, other things like that, you can come to the help section. I'm going to click that back arrow. And then there's also settings, so that's where I could put a passcode in. I could say I want to download photos that happen to be there or allow it to use Google Maps. How many months of calendar do I want to see, 6 months out, a year, things like that. So I'm going to go back on the more. I'm going to go back to this screen. So those are the main options down here. I did mention that there's a list section, and this is kind of an advanced feature that's really helpful, especially if you work with a lot of people in the church or you need to send emails and those type of things. I have created some lists here. I actually created one yesterday that said bishops that I have not populated yet, but these might be people that you need to communicate with regularly. So I could create, if top right, I could click the plus symbol, and I could choose to create a new list. Like, who would I need to mention? This would be like all my laurels or all my deacons, or whoever you're mentioning that you need to contact. I'm going to hit cancel there. I created one that's bishop, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then I could actually start, click the plus symbol, and I could go start searching for people's names to put in there and add them to the list. So if I were to choose Bishop Bodley, I could just select his name and say done. Say done up here in the top left. And now I've at least got him in my list. And I could go through the other bishops. So I could start from the list and I could add people that way. But usually what I find to be easier is I would create that list, let's say for bishops, and I don't know all the bishops for all the wards off the top of my head, maybe, so I might want to actually go use the tools that are already built in to help me with that. So I could just create my list. I'm going to go back to organizations. Now that I've gone back to organizations, you can see it's in a ward and I can look at bishopric. So if I see bishopric, I could choose to select the bishop, okay? And you see once I've pulled his information up, one of the items says add to list. So add to contacts will add it to the contacts of your mobile device. So on my iPad, it would add it to my Apple contacts, so I would just have it always saved. But if I add to list, it's going to pull up the list that I have, and I have him in a list that says all ward and bishops. Okay, so he's already in that list. Now, rather than, I'm going to go back to bishopric, rather than going all the way back out to the directory and changing, the really cool thing about this app is because I'm in bishopric, if I need to find all the bishops, I can just stay in this organization screen and I can change wards. So at the top center, I could click and I could choose Cleveland ward, and now I want to add Bishop Pilek. So I could click his name and then I could click add to list, and I could select that I want him in the bishops list. In the top left, I say done. Now I would, in my arrow, go back to bishops, and you're going to get the point. I'm going to go to bishopric in the center and say Lyria ward. Now I could pick Bishop Canizzato, so I can choose that, and I can say, hey, add that to my list, and I can go to bishops, say done, and follow that process through all the wards. I'm going to go back, all the wards until I get my list. So now if I click on list at the bottom, you can see now I have the 3 bishops in my list. I would have to go and get all 7 of our bishops in that list. But now that I've chosen that list, I could actually choose that at any time. And then you'll see this same open in or action arrow. So I could choose that action arrow, and you can see I can send an email to this list of people, or a text to this list of people, or share. So if I say share, that's going to just give me the option to maybe email that or message that to someone else and say, hey, here's the list of bishops and things. But if I needed to regularly email the bishops of the wards for my stake calling for social media, I could actually just come here. If I've made this list already, I could actually click on this and say send email to list. It's going to launch my email, and I could then draft an email and send it out to them. Okay, so I have the ability to do that. Another tip is if it's easier for you to actually draft the email on your computer, since this list thing is really only functional on a mobile device, on an iOS or an Android device, I could create this email. I could even put my subject in here, and I could say, stake social media. Update. And rather than sending the email and drafting it in here, I could actually choose to cancel, and it's going to ask me if I want to save it as a draft. So if I actually save that as a draft, it's saving it. If I have the same email on this device as I have on my computer, the really cool thing is now if I go back to my computer, that draft is saved on my computer, and I could actually create and edit it there. So whichever your preference is. If you're really good doing it mobily and you have all the information you need on your mobile device, you can just send them a quick message. If you need something more complex and you want to go back to your computer, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of tools that you can use on here. Again, we've got our directory, we've got organizations, calendar, lists, missionaries, meeting house, sync, and more. And this is a great tool for you to be able to keep up to speed and up to date while you're on the go. So thank you for joining us today for Tech Tuesday. We hope that you will join us every Tuesday for a good tip as we kind of go through all of the resources for your church life.